I mean, I did say that I think TRVL is doing very similar price action to Bitcoin in my yesterday stream. And when you look at the candles, I'll bring Bitcoin to the side just to compare. You can have a look and tell me what you think. Let's get rid of this. Stop. Okay, so that's the weekly time frame on Bitcoin, and that's the weekly time frame on TRVL. Okay, see that? So we're both experiencing weekly red dojis in the highs. When TRVL, it's the high of this range, which is at 9 cents. On Bitcoin, it's the all-time high. So there's something very similar going on between Bitcoin and TRVL. And as long as Bitcoin just ranges and then potentially goes up, I think TRVL is going to do exactly the same thing. Potentially we could range and then go up. I'm kind of seeing the same thing. I'm not really seeing any difference at the moment. If you look at the way the candles are forming, potentially TRVL is slightly more bullish, because here right now I can see that there's a green weekly candle in the current week, and here Bitcoin is still red. Okay, and TRVL had a much smaller body on the doji. So the other thing that I wanted to show you on TRVL is something that I posted on my Twitter yesterday, and I thought this was quite interesting. So if you pull a Gann line, and I've got my Gann here, use the 3-day chart, there it is. So if you pull a Gann fan, it could be in the 3-day or it could be in the daily. If you pull it from I'm on the MEXC chart because that has the all-time high at the pivot right there at the start. So you put it from the all-time high all the way down to the low of the end of December 22. Okay, yeah. It will pull these lines, and you can see that this first one, there was a reaction on it here until the price came above it, and then it used it as support before it sprang out. It went all the way up to the 2-1 before it resisted. It came down and it resisted again, and then when you zoom in, we broke it back in November, and then we found support on the top side of the Gann line, this one, which is the 2-1. We've spent a few months trying to get back up to the next line, and what's interesting is this explosion in January. It went all the way up potentially to the top of that line, to the underside of that line, and now look what's happened. Okay, we've actually broken up above the line, and this next line is the 3-1. Okay, can everyone see that? That's quite interesting. And what else is interesting is that if you take a fib pool from this relief rally pivot that was put in February 23 to the all-time low, you have this golden pocket. Golden pocket is an area between the 618 and the 66 or the 65, it doesn't really matter, where the price usually resists if it comes back in a pullback. And so you can see that the price did resist. You see that? That was a resistance. This is resistance. And what's happened now is you can see how on this 3-day candle we had resistance. You see, that's resistance. Again, that's resistance. But what's happened is we've broken through this golden pocket. We've broken through this Gann line, this 3-1. And now we're coming to back test the golden pocket here and this Gann line. Okay, so we are now actually in a really, really good position. I think you could see what I'm seeing. It looks to me that this is a really strong position to be in. Like, I think maybe people don't understand how good this looks, and the way that these lines have been reacting on the higher time frame, and also this golden pocket, how important it was to clear it. Now that we're back testing these support lines, as long as the price holds. Now, you know, I don't know if the price is going to take 1 week to hold before it continues, or whether it's going to take a few weeks and the price could just kind of fall, gradually bleed before it continues. Yeah, but as long as the price holds, then you're basically on this kind of these unusual support lines. Usually I like horizontal ones, and I prefer SR flips and higher time frame fib levels. So the higher time frame fib levels, if you were to pull them, you will see, that one, it's probably that one. You will see what's happening is that we came into the 382, which is a higher time frame resistance level, and also the 9 cents mark, which is the launch price. So that you could argue is a little bit of a range between 9 cents and the 382. There's a little bit of a range there, which is resisting, but we're also on support, and the support that we're on, even though it's not a higher time frame fib, I always like the higher time frame fib levels. So in my mind, 5.5 cents is a really strong level, but to get to 5.5 cents, we have to basically go back underneath this Gann line, back underneath this golden pocket. It wouldn't necessarily be great. Okay, we might, if that was to happen, you could get, and you were to do that again, that would be amazing strength. That would be weakness followed by strength if that was to happen. Okay, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, because I don't think it will, because as long as we're holding support, why am I thinking that we're going to go down? And at the moment, this is the 3-day chart, which closes today in about 12 hours time. This is finding support. You can see it's finding support, and we don't even know how this candle is going to close. So the longer this holds as a support, the more likely it is that we just continue. Yeah, and I think the breakout above 9 cents is going to be quite explosive. I think it's going to be very explosive. It's going to look very explosive too, because you're effectively, what you're creating now potentially is some kind of, again, we're doing this quite a lot, is some kind of flat top triangle idea. Yeah, and what tends to happen is as the price ascends, it gets steeper. And so I've drawn this in a previous stream, probably in January, because I was looking at some previous streams. I'm kind of seeing a kind of rounding bottom where the price starts to accelerate like that. That's what I'm kind of imagining. Yeah, I don't know when it's going to happen, but that's kind of what I'm seeing, how the steepness is getting more steep. And so I don't necessarily think this is going to be a prolonged correction. I don't think so. And then the other thing that I had in mind, which I was explaining to people, was I have this fib, this major fib time that I have in mind. Now, this is the fib time. So it's all the way from the beginning to this pivot. Let me just adjust it to make sure it's correct, because I've got it on the weekly time frame. Let me just move it now to the 3-day time frame. Yeah, so on the 3-day time frame, it's not as nice as the weekly time frame. Yeah, the weekly time frame, it looks really good. So let me just go to the weekly time frame. The problem with the weekly time frame is then you have a week period where the pivot could act. Yeah. So you have this pivot at the all-time low, and we are in that week now. Okay. What does that mean? Fib time on its own, you can't trade it. You can't trade fib time on its own. On its own, it means nothing. Yeah. Fib time only works as confluence, and the confluence depends on where the price is with respect to support and resistance. Okay. So if you're into resistance, then the fib time can tell you that that is a major pivot. And if you're in support, it could mean that that's a major pivot. Okay. And the problem is that we're into both. It's a real problem. Okay. But in my mind, I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if by this week we were trading at 30 cents and we hit fib time to put in a major pivot at the highs? But I don't think Bitcoin is going down, and I see that we're going up with Bitcoin. So if we were now putting a pivot in the highs, potentially that means we're going down, and it doesn't actually make sense because we're still low. We're still under 9 cents. It doesn't make sense to me. So potentially we're putting another pivot in the lows right now. Potentially, that's what I'm thinking now. I don't know. I'm just like, I know that with fib time, it's a pivot in highs with the lows. And I think that idea comes when I consider these Ganns. This Gann and this back test of this golden pocket. So if we weren't on support, I would be thinking, okay, we're not on support, we're into resistance. And even though we're into resistance, look, we've just cleared some major higher time frame resistance levels and we're flipping them into support. So we are in support. We're in higher time frame support. The higher time frame support is this 3-1 Gann, and the higher time frame support is the back test of this golden pocket, which is the golden pocket from this pivot put in February 23 to the all-time low. So from there to there, that's the golden pocket, and we're on the other side and we're back testing it. So potentially you could argue that there's a major pivot now being put in to the lows, but we're not in the lows, we're in the highs. And potentially that could mean that after this pivot we could be going up like that. Okay, I'm just speculating. This is all speculative. I don't know. Okay, it's very unusual for us to be in the middle of nowhere when you're putting in a major pivot. Okay, but it would make sense because even though we're into resistance, we're actually over support as well. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, can the price go down now and do this? That's what that would suggest. If that was a major pivot in the highs, that's what's going to happen next. This is a question, and that would require BTC to fall back a lot. Yeah. And that's what's going to be required for BTC. It required Bitcoin to pull back for this to happen. I think now that I'm seeing that the price is following Bitcoin, as long as Bitcoin is ranging in its current range, I don't see this happening. This is basically going to require Bitcoin to at least go back to 50,000 and maybe lower from this week onwards. I just don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. Okay. I just don't think it's going to happen. If it starts to happen, we'll have to revisit this, and it's not going to look good because then you have put a major pivot in at the highs on fib time. Okay. And then the problem is that right now you're trading at 8 cents. Before you know it, let's say suddenly next week we're down here, you're trading back at 5 cents. It's such a big drop in value that it would suck. Yeah, because if you are putting a major pivot in the highs, you really want to sell it. I think possibly it's showing us support rather than resistance, the major support. So we'll have to gauge this and see. Okay, any questions on that? Of course, this is quite speculative, but you can see the Gann line, and you can see the reverse side of that golden pocket, and you can see that we're on support right now. And also what I showed you is that we're following Bitcoin. Okay, so I mean, I guess, you know, are people selling? I don't know. I don't think it's there. I don't see crazy volume. You see like descending prices, descending volume. I'm not seeing crazy selling at the moment, and I'm not seeing crazy buying either. There's a little bit more buying here on gate. You see there's a little bit of buying coming in here, and oh, you see that? Look at this little drawing that I did a few days ago. How interesting was that? Right into the value area low, and then it just bounced out of it. It's quite interesting. Amazing. We were there, and I said we just go down and just come out of it. That's quite interesting. Let me just update the volume profile. Point of control is still in the highs. We're in a high volume node on KuCoin. Declining volume on the way down. I'm not seeing crazy volume on the way up at the moment. Okay, so it's just an observation. There was a big sell yesterday on Bybit, 159,000, and the price is just kind of slowly working its way back up. Okay, I think that's TRVL. I think the chart to bear in mind is this one, these Gann lines. Okay, and I'm looking forward to the last point of support. I'm looking forward to getting up there, getting above that pivot, and I'm looking forward to getting back above 17 cents. Okay, I think it's going to be really, for a lot of people, it's going to be a lot of relief. And when we get back above there, because I think it'll be very unlikely that people start selling, and the people will just start buying and buying and buying, because look, I've got this going to $5 and we're still low. We're still at 8 cents, right? This context is really important. Any questions on that? This is a really nice 12-hour reversal pattern on TRVL, just in case anyone was interested. I'll show you on Bybit. Look at this beautiful reversal pattern. Okay, This is the pivot. We've basically, it's a failed auction of this pivot, and you've reversed the volume. You've come down, you've back tested this candle, and now you're working your way back up. So we have a really nice 12-hour reversal pattern on TRVL right now. I wonder if that corresponds to Bitcoin. It's looking more bullish than Bitcoin, to be honest. It's looking a little bit more bullish than Bitcoin. Okay. That's TRVL. I hope that helps people decide what they're going to do. Hopefully buy more.